Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Ted Stenstrom, and this session is part of our ongoing Commerce Conversations series, where we're exploring how commerce is evolving, not just from a technology standpoint, but from an operational and strategic standpoint as well. In our last discussion, if you joined us, we talked about the move from fragmented systems to connected commerce, why businesses have had to move beyond disconnected applications and think much more seriously about architecture, workflows, and orchestration. Today, we're going to pick up right where we left that conversation off. The question now is, once the foundation has been established, the connected foundation, what next? Okay, so just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we begin. The session is going to run for approximately 45 minutes. All participants will be on mute to ensure a smooth experience for all. Please feel free to submit questions in the questions box, as you see here on the screen, throughout the session. We plan to save time for QA at the end of the session, and a recording is going to be shared with everybody who attended. I am joined once again, excited, and joined once again by Dwayne from Shopify and Rahul from Kensium. As a partner growth architect for Shopify, Dwayne brings a strong view of where the commerce market is heading, what brands are asking for now, and how the commerce platform conversation is evolving. Rahul brings deep experience from years of working on commerce architecture, ERP integration, and the operational realities that sit behind growth. It's really great to have both of you back. Just to get things started, my opening question is why this conversation about intelligent commerce is particularly relevant right now. So Dwayne, I'll start with you. What has changed in the market that makes this conversation so timely?
Yeah, appreciate it, Ted. Well, thank you on behalf of Shopify for hosting the ongoing conversation. I really enjoyed the last one. I know we're going to enjoy this one too because we're conversation heavy and only a couple of slides. So I expect we'll have a pretty rich conversation and leading into future conversations too. Yeah, so yes, why is this conversation about intelligent commerce especially relevant right now? And I think it's really relevant because, businesses are no longer asking whether AI is interesting. The conversation is no longer, hey, is this interesting for a business? The conversation is now, it's absolutely, interesting and relevant for a business. The conversation's gone from, should we be doing this to, we know we should be doing this. Now, where can the value be delivered, right? Commerce environments are more complex than ever, like more channels, more systems, more data, more higher customer expectations. And every place that there's more channels, more systems, there's this moment or an opportunity to either create operational value, build a moat around the operational value you have. So as the conversation is shifting from connectivity to responsiveness, dishes and quality, operational agility, businesses really have this moment to move from just base connectivity to really intelligent commerce, where the intelligence is offering real guideposts, guidance, if you will, around how to act faster, how to act more intelligently at less risk. Rahul, I think the real test is like whether the operation foundation is ready to support that. Do you have any perspectives?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I'll add mine as well, Ted. The way I look at it from an execution standpoint, the excitement is genuine, right? And it should be. The possibilities with AI in commerce are real, right? And in my 20 years plus of building commerce systems, and with the last 15 specifically working on commerce ERP integrations, I've seen a consistent pattern, right? Businesses almost always underestimate the operational foundation that's required to make new capabilities actually stick. The pain never shows up in one system. It shows up in the gaps between systems, inventory records that don't match across platforms, order exceptions that fall into a manual queue, customer data that lives in 3 places with slightly different versions in every system, and workflows that depend on someone's tribal knowledge and break the moment the person is unavailable, right? So and here's what I've learned, right? And AI doesn't fix those gaps. We have this feeling that AI is magically going to solve everything, but AI doesn't fix those gaps. Unfortunately, it actually amplifies them, right? So if the underlying operations are fragmented, applying AI makes the fragmentation more expensive and more visible, right? So the businesses that get the most from AI will be the ones that first invest in making those underlying flows coherent and not just connected, but genuinely coordinated. And the good news is that the businesses that have done that work, that have taken the time to get their data consistent, their workflows visible, and their business logic out of the spreadsheets and people's heads, those businesses are genuinely ready to take the next step. The gap between them and everyone else is only going to widen going forward, right? So I think that's the so for me, I'm very excited about this topic because it's all about the underlying architecture. How do you build the right kind of systems, and how do you move from connected commerce to intelligent commerce?
Got it. Yeah, so it makes perfect sense. I appreciate the thoughts. So what I'm hearing is the market is moving from what I'll call curiosity about AI to a much more practical question. Where does AI actually create value, and what needs to exist first to capture that value? Let's move to connected commerce, the foundational to the intelligence layer. So this visual is intended to be a bridge between our two sessions, the last one and this. Connected commerce was about getting systems to work together. So coordinated commerce is where workflows, decisions, and business logic start to operate more efficiently and effectively across those systems. Intelligent commerce is the next layer, is what I'm hearing, where the business can use that coordinated foundation that's been created to make better decisions, handle exceptions faster, and improve outcomes over time. So question to you, Dwayne, how do you define intelligent commerce in a way that would be useful to business leaders, not just tech teams?
Oh, great question. And I really like this graphic as well. I think it's at a high level illustrative of the journey that companies go on. A lot of times implementing e-commerce is the middle of this. It's the coordinated piece where you're coordinating your transactions with your ERP, with your OMS. But I would define intelligent commerce as the next evolution beyond these connected systems. Connected commerce gets the systems to work together. It's the ERPs working with your OMS, working with your front end, transaction layer, perhaps working with your payment provider, working with back office analytics. It's coordinating. Coordinated commerce is improving how the workflows and decisions move across them, like better understanding of systems of reference versus systems of record. Where does the decision making rights apply? And a lot of times we think about that organizationally, but systems can have decision rights as well. And so on the right, intelligent commerce is where the businesses start to use that coordinated foundation from commerce to surface the insights, prioritize actions, improve decisions across operations. It's not just about doing the work faster. It's about helping the business respond more intelligently. And while we're not here to talk about Shopify's product specifically, this is what Shopify's Sidekick offer the product has, right? We have the ability in the admin panel for anyone in the organization that has a right to access Shopify can ask a question about, what happened yesterday. And then not only do you receive back what happened, but real suggestions about what to do about it on the site, in your operations, in your data. And then in some cases can even act on your behalf to make those connections, right? So it's operating in an intelligent way by taking in your data as a merchant, but also a lot of insights that are anonymized from the other part of Shopify's intelligence across millions of merchants. So when we make a recommendation, it's grounded in intelligence of what's happening on your store and in other stores, right? It's helping you respond more intelligently. Rahul, I'm sure you have thoughts too.
Yeah, got it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ted.
I was going to say, so it becomes more actionable, is what I'm hearing, Dwayne. Maybe you could break it down a little bit further, Rahul. How do you explain the difference between simply just being automated and actually becoming more intelligent operationally?
Oh, it's an interesting question. I think the simplest way I can explain is this, right? I think automation follows predefined rules, and intelligence improves decisions within the context, right? So let me make that a little more concrete, right? So earlier in my career, I think most of you are aware that I spent years building point-to-point integrations, right? System A sends data to system B. That's point-to-point integration. That was often the right answer at the time, and it solved a real problem and it moved the business forward. But what changed my thinking lately was watching what happens as complexity scales, right? So once you have 5 systems connected instead of 2, 10 systems connected instead of 2, and hundreds of exception types instead of a handful, and now you're adding AI decision on top of it, the challenge is no longer just moving data from one place to another, right? So the challenge is coordinating decisions across the business in real time. And that's a fundamentally different problem that we are trying to solve here, right? So connected commerce, which we see on the screen on the left, is the critical first step, right? Which is basically getting systems to talk to each other. And we've all done that. I think that has probably started before I even got into IT, right? That's been happening for ages. Coordinated commerce is where the business starts to operate from a shared understanding of what's actually happening across those systems, right? That's where we were till maybe around a year ago. And intelligent commerce is where the coordinated context enables you to make better decisions, right? Not just faster execution of predefined rules, but genuine improvement in terms of how the business responds to what's happening in the moment, right? And the reason this distinction matters to leaders is that if you try to add intelligence on top of a connected but not coordinated foundation, you're not going to get intelligence. You're going to get faster automation of a fragmented process, and that's often worse, not better. Right? So, in summary, I would say, connectivity is necessary. Coordination is where the business gains control, and I would say intelligence is where the control turns into better decisions in real time and at scale.
Got it. So I love that where you started. Automation follows rules, but intelligence improves decisions. Let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about AI from a commerce operations standpoint. So, and I want to just make this a little bit more practical. You're both practitioners. You're strategic, but you're also practitioners with a lot of experience. So rather than talk about AI in broad, abstract terms, the real opportunity is not AI as a standalone feature. Like that's what I'm hearing from both of you. It's AI as a layer across workflows, across business workflows, helping businesses to make better decisions around orders, inventory, fulfillment, service, B2B processes, operational insight, and so forth. So Dwayne, where do you see AI becoming genuinely useful across order operations and exception handling?
Boy, yeah, I'm going to enjoy going through each of these because I get to have these conversations with our own product team, with our partner team, with merchants. I love having these conversations too with people who are skeptical of Shopify, or skeptical of where AI is going in general. But yeah, orders and exceptions. I think AI can really help merchants detect anomalies earlier, like detect differences, surface those likely issues, support better triage. And I think about like could AI be listening for different signals on different storefronts? Maybe you have a Shopify storefront and a competitor storefront and a custom built storefront, and they're all kind of operating independently, but AI is detecting that like errors are happening on all sites, related to ordering. You probably have a backend ERP, connectivity issue right there, right? Surfacing those, in ways that people become more aware more quickly, rather than like wait for the email that you don't check until the morning. Maybe there's some sort of automated notification and people don't respond. There's an escalation and kind of a handover, right? The value is often not fully autonomous action at first. I think a lot about just notifying people that something is happening is step one. Notifying and making some recommendations for what should happen next. Potentially step two. Step three is making some of these, low risk, high reward decisions, fully autonomous, right? And what I just described there is Shopify's journey internally as we built AI tools that I've been witness to over the last couple of years is really, at first it's around helping people just understand, oh, we have a breakage moment here, or getting a little bit of bot traffic over here. The next one is moving into, and here's what should be done about it. Check the logs here, coordinate with a partner. And then in some cases there's some automation that's happened. But again, we build in that stepwise way, from notification to recommendation to autonomous action broadly.
Got it. Let's, Ro, maybe you could take me even a little bit deeper. What would this look like operationally once, say, an order leaves the storefront?
Actually, I want to start a level before that, because we're talking about commerce, right? A customer placing an order is just the beginning of an operational chain that most people outside of commerce operations don't fully appreciate. Especially, I was just talking to someone today explaining what we do, and a lot of times commerce people think that is about just getting that order in, right? So commerce operations is, from the moment of order capture, the business may need to validate the customer's account status, apply the right pricing rules, check the inventory availability across multiple locations, route it to the right fulfillment node, synchronize with ERP, trigger invoicing logic, and manage customer communication, all of it, right? All before anything physically ships. And it's amazing when you see large businesses operate at scale by doing all this seamlessly, right? And at each one of these steps, there is potential for exceptions, right? So there could be payment holds, inventory discrepancies, carrier failures, compliance flags, address issues, so many more, right? So the question is, how does the business know about them quickly, and how does it respond intelligently, right? That's the foundation of intelligent commerce. And AI becomes genuinely useful here, where it can surface these patterns earlier, right? So detecting that a set of orders is likely to hit a fulfillment delay before it becomes a customer complaint, recommending a next best action for the operations team, or automatically routing exceptions to the right queue based on business priority, right? So the value at first is not full autonomous action, right? I mean, we want all these systems to operate independently without any human intervention and so on. But I think we should start looking at it from the perspective of getting better visibility and better informed decisions for the people that are managing the process, right? So in summary, Ted, I would say AI is most useful in order operations, not because it eliminates exceptions, that's the holy grail, right?
Yeah.
But it's useful because it helps the businesses see them earlier, understand them faster, and respond more intelligently. I think that's the foundation of where intelligence commerce should start from.
Got it. So connected across the workflow. Just to carry that thought forward, talk a little bit about inventory and fulfillment and customer service and how those would factor in downstream.
Yeah, that's the next big challenge, right? And so this is where I would say reliable context becomes the foundation for everything. If your inventory truth is fragmented, right, different numbers in your commerce platform, your warehouse, then any decisioning layer you add on top, AI or otherwise, will produce unreliable outputs, right? So what I think I'll talk about what we've been doing recently with Omnify CX and the intelligence commerce platform that we've been building.
Yeah.
What we focus here is normalizing the order and inventory context, so that all these workflows across these systems operate from a single coherent picture of what's available, right? And where it is, and what's the cost and speed implications of different fulfillment decisions. The key is to have this foundation, and once this foundation exists, intelligent routing and allocation decisions, all those things become possible in ways that simply weren't available before, right? So the idea is to make sure that the business across all areas is working from a consistent version of the reality, right? And that's the point I would make to anyone who's evaluating an intelligent fulfillment option, right? Before you ask the AI to make better routing decisions, ask yourself whether your inventory data is trustworthy enough to route from. That's the prerequisite, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So AI can add productivity in each of these individual functions, but it's when you start to gain intelligence across the entire workflow that productivity really becomes exponential. From a customer standpoint, things don't stop with the order. Things stop when I receive my item, right? So if we're just looking at orders and order volumes, and we're not considerate of the entire process and the customer journey that's associated with that, like, we're going to have unhappy customers. And but tell me a little bit. So that really rings true from a B2C standpoint. Talk a little bit about B2B. Like, where on the B2B side do you see the biggest upside for intelligence?
I think B2B is where I see the highest upside for intelligent commerce, precisely because the workflows are the most complex and cost of exceptions in B2B is the highest, right? Think about what a B2B order flow actually involves. right? A B2B order flow involves quote management, customer-specific pricing, credit limit validations, multi-level approval workflows, and inventory reservation across locations, and a whole lot of things, right? And these are not simple workflows, and they often depend on data that lives in multiple systems with different owners to those systems. And when you add intelligence to that environment, and I mean real intelligence operating on coordinated context, not automation on top of fragmented data, you can start to surface issues before they become delays, and you can recommend the right approval path based on order characteristics, and flag anomalies in pricing or credit at the time of order rather than after shipment. Right? And for B2B business, the ROI here is very measurable because the workflows are expensive to get wrong. Right? So I would say that in B2B, the more complex the workflow, the more valuable intelligence becomes, because the cost of a missed exception or a delayed decision isn't just operational, it's relational, right? In B2C, at least, okay, if one customer is unhappy, okay, you'll move on to the next one. In B2B, it costs your entire relation.
Got it. Yeah. So the more complex the workflow, the higher value the automation becomes, or the intelligence becomes. Makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing just overall from both of you is AI is not just a single use case. It's really not. It's a layer that improves decisions, exception handling, prioritization, and workflow execution, but only if it's operating in a coordinated way or a coordinated context. Let's yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I think Dwayne, you can probably add some context here. I think Shopify is doing a lot with respect to AI in customer service as well, right? I think especially in terms of taking it beyond the chatbot layer, where giving operational context. Would you like to add anything to that?
In terms of customer service, the best service use cases aren't just about answering questions, right? They're about bringing the kind of the operational context into the service interaction so that the business can respond faster, more accurately. Again, it's being context aware, context aware of who this customer is. Are they actually the executive that's calling us, or are they in the merchandising team? Both of those can be extremely high value interactions, but everything from the recommended talk track to the time on the site, the questions you might ask for value add, kind of understanding, was this person the contract signer, or is this person, my day-to-day interaction? Being aware of the time of day context, being aware of what's happening on their merchant site. When someone calls Shopify for assistance, reaches out to our customer service teams, we have an incredible amount of tools that help us be contextually aware of the historic tickets they filed. When was the last time we talked to them? What's happening on their site right now? What's happening in the infrastructure teams? And bring all that to bear. So yeah, I mean, and so a lot of times that customer service is around the B2B workflows that you were talking about, Rahul. I think where there's a lot of complexity, there's real opportunities to use AI. And one that I'm very passionate about and have consulted on for years is configure, price, quote, right? And in not so recent past, building meaningful configure, price, quote was a capital project, right? There's a data structure behind that. A lot of times it was around taking cycle time out of a configure, price, quote. Sometimes it's reducing the quote amount. But a common use case that used to be kind of tough to build is you'd receive a quote request and a manufacturer or distributor would quote it as a custom request. They didn't really always stop to think, is this actually a make to stock or a stocking SKU, right? So if you're ordering an item that's, the buyer's ordering an item that's, 25 inches long, but the standard roll is 24 inches, that took some, personal intelligence from the quoting team in the past, right? And they have to be context aware of what this buyer's typical application is. But in an AI world, you could do really rapid searches against here's what the buyer said they wanted versus our standard stocking SKUs, right? And they actually just need this. Let's make this recommendation. And then, are we going to make a standard stocking SKU recommendation based off of what you said earlier? Can your inventory promise actually, fulfill that? And then at risk of like being too far afield right here, there's just a real opportunity to connect external data sources. I'm in conversations pretty frequently with prospective merchants who are interested in these complex workflows, but becoming weather aware. What's the weather in my service area? Like, what's the road construction in my service area? The one I've had in the last couple of weeks is, the World Cup is coming to America in a month. And what does that mean when you have a city like Kansas City that's going to have 600,000 additional visitors over the course of a few weeks? And what does that mean? Like, do we have to protect some inventory because people are going to be needing earplugs for these games? I don't know, but like, I just encourage people to think about AI in these big, broad ways. Like, how could our service level improve if we just knew a little bit more about the weather, the road location, what's happening in your local environment. So I'm a little far afield there, but you can see how passionate I get about the ways that businesses can either layer it or interweave it in their business.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up CPQ because we are actually working with a customer right now that's actually having the exact same challenge, and they deal with framing. And as you know, custom frames always, you're dealing with different sizes. The inventory that you have is not exactly what you're really selling. So yeah, so that's a really good use case for what you're talking about.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that, Dwayne. You just took it to the next level. So weather patterns, traffic patterns. Didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's big businesses. Big businesses, know this, right? Like the Home Depots of the world have great intelligence about what's happening at the store level relative to weather. But because everything can be so API and interconnected now, is it that far afield to think that a family-owned manufacturer distributor could connect to the weather API from the National Weather Services and just start to bring that intelligence in, or have an analyst, an intern analyst, like maybe run some correlation between, here's my call volume and my trouble tickets the last 3 years against historic weather patterns. That's a quick thing for AI to chew on, and you have some intelligence that you can bring in.
Yeah, I love it. But I'm going to bring us back down a little bit. So let's talk about, I love the vision. I do it. All things are possible, and it is exciting. But let's talk about the foundation for intelligent commerce, because that really is the starting point for all of this to be possible. So I think this is, at least in my opinion, this is probably the most important part of the conversation, right? If businesses want to move from connected commerce to intelligent commerce, what has to be true first? Like, as we know, as we just heard, AI does not create value simply by being added to a tech stack. It depends on the quality of the foundation underneath it, right? That is just critical. If you walk away with anything, walk away with this. The quality of the foundation underneath is really what matters here. So question to you, Dwayne, from your perspective, what are the foundational elements that need to exist before AI can become truly useful across commerce operations, and some of the things that you've been talking about?
Yeah, and again, I'll put this within a Shopify lens and try to share a little bit of like the dog food that I eat and all our teams eat every day. And I mean, the first requirement is trustworthy context. Trust is everything. And that trust is, I'll describe it myself. Like I gain trust inside Shopify and with our partners by being consistent, exposing my workflows, coordinating a lot of, conversations with people, and doing that in context of who I'm talking to. A great partner, such as Kensium versus an internal great partner in our product team. I think to bring that into like data, I mean, it means data consistency. It means workflow ability. It's coordinating the systems that Rahul is talking about, so that the AI is working from this coherent picture of data and processes it can trust. If that foundation is fragmented, the output is fragmented. The overall process or the output can only be as trusted as the least trustworthy part of it, right? So, trustful architectures matter more, not less in AI world. That means trustful architecture of your teams and your culture. It also means trustful architecture of your data sources and your system. So really, I mean, the button all have the key components to, I think, take away is like trusted data, visible workflows, connected architectures, both human and systematic, governed logic, and as we talked about in the first call a week or two ago, human oversight. It's not trust but verify. It's be careful about that trust. Don't trust and always verify, right?
Got it. Yeah. So let's look at it from another angle. So from an implementation side, and I'll throw this one to you, Rahul. Where do you see businesses most often falling short in your discussions with it? Is it data? Is it workflows? Is it architecture? Is it logic ownership? Is it all of the above? Where do the gaps exist today, typically?
I'll start with where it doesn't. It used to be these were hard things to convince people and explain to people and so on. So the biggest gap is almost never enthusiasm right now, because everybody is talking about AI. Everybody has the fear of missing
No
out.
lack of enthusiasm.
Exactly. Right. And oddly, it is also not almost it's almost never budget as well nowadays, especially when it comes to AI. For everything else, it's a constraint, but not with AI. Right. So I would say that the biggest gap is operational coherence. Right. And that's a much harder thing to fix than adding a new tool. So let me describe what operational incoherence looks like in practice, something that we've all lived through, we've seen it and so on. But it's important for us to recognize it when we see it, right? I think you see it when your ERP has a different inventory number than your commerce platform, and both differ from what's in the WMS. You see it when an order exceptions are managed through a combination of email threads, Slack messages, and someone's personal spreadsheet, right? You see it when adding a new sales channel requires custom development work that touches, like, 5 different systems. And you see it when no single person in the organization can give you an accurate picture of fulfillment performance across the channels, right? So the idea is that when you layer in AI, because of that enthusiasm that I talked about that everybody has, on top of this environment, it inherits all of that inconsistency, right? So it has no stable context to reason from. And what ends up happening is that businesses spend a significant amount of time and money on AI implementations that either produce unreliable recommendations or require constant human corrections, or get quietly abandoned because they don't deliver the value that was promised. This is the reason why actually I see a lot of businesses, starting up on AI, doing a lot of POCs, and they remain POCs. They have not, and you see this in all the reports that are coming out. People are spending so much money on AI, but then really not getting the value out of it the right way. And I think the solution isn't complicated to understand, even if it takes a real discipline to execute it. Right? It's building on shared data foundations, a consistent view of customers, orders, inventory, and business rules across the systems. Right? So exception handling isn't dependent on someone's memory. Right? So it's governing where business logic lives, so that pricing rules, routing rules, approval rules, all these are managed properly. And it's maintaining meaningful human oversight, especially in early stages of AI adoption, so that the business can validate what the AI is recommending before it starts acting. I was watching Claude released this Claude work and so on, right? So I was experimenting with it, and I started doing something simple as generating a daily brief, which I started sending out to my team starting today, actually. And it's interesting in terms of what I have to watch and monitor and verify to send it out, but that's exactly what has to happen in these larger business contexts as well. And that thinking is exactly what shaped how we built Omnify CX as well, right? Not as an AI bolt-on, but as an orchestration and intelligence layer that creates a coherent foundation, which makes intelligence possible in the first place.
Yeah, I'd like to follow on a couple of things. You said so much good stuff there around data consistency and in this foundation. I'd like to harken back to our prior conversation. I think I made a couple bold and probably pointed attacks on, can a merchant, produce product data very quickly, order history very quickly. You talked about some inventory history right here just a minute or two ago. I think these are great pressure tests. I think another opportunity is when a merchant, manufacturer, distributor, D2C merchant, if you are using spreadsheets to run your business, that is a starting point for AI, right?
Yep.
And outputting data from an ERP into a spreadsheet so you can do something, maybe that's okay. But if you have CPQ logic in a spreadsheet, which I see like manufacturers of hundreds of millions of dollars of sales do, that's an opportunity for AI right there. Any sort of reports in Excel. These are just real opportunities to use AI to define standard data sources for your business, get everyone operating off roughly the same data set, if not the exact same data set, and then have AI pointed to that to do some of the intelligence I was talking about mashing it with external systems and things. But if merchants are looking for a starting point, find where you're using spreadsheets and start to do that. I'll give you an anecdote here at Shopify, of course. I've seen a real reduction in the number of spreadsheets that come across my desk and the number of slides that come across my desk. We're We're using automated internal websites to do quick collaborations. It's no longer, it's just way less spreadsheets and way less slides. And I expect, and I think that's available to merchants at any maturity level, at any size, is to get away from spreadsheets.
Yeah, there's a pro tip. So noted. So, and the thing I'm hearing loud and clear is you can't just throw AI into the mix, right? And there's a lot of excitement, but AI doesn't fix problems by putting it or adding it on top of a chaotic process or workflow, right? The goal is to apply intelligence to a coordinated operating model, which needs to be in place first. Great. Let's move to like what I'll call the practical path forward. So, and I just, I think we've made a commitment here in these conversations to keep them as practical as possible. So, in the spirit of that, if someone is listening and thinking, okay, this all makes sense, this is where I want to go, what is the best way to begin without overcomplicating it? So we'll start with you, Rahul. If a business wants to move towards intelligent commerce, where do I start? Dwayne gave a great example, but can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the first thing I would say is that don't start with a tool decision, right? Don't make this into or in another tool, another piece of software, and so on, right? Don't start by evaluating AI platforms or solutions that are out there. I would say start with a workflow decision. Look at your operations and identify the processes that matter the most and break the most often, right? And for most commerce businesses, those processes cluster around a few areas based on our experience, right? So the first one would be, I would say, order capture to fulfillment, or inventory synchronization across locations, B2B approvals and customer-specific pricing, returns and exceptions management is another big area, right? And then customer communication during disruption, right? So those are the workflows where the cost of errors is the highest, the frequency of exceptions is the highest, and where better decisions would materially improve both the customer experience and the operational cost structures.
Should I begin with one workflow? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Or should I start with
I would say once you've identified one or two of those areas, not even the workflows, pick one or two of those areas, map how they actually work today and not how they're supposed to work, right? But how they actually work today, including the manual steps, the workarounds, the places where people step in because system can't handle it. And that mapping exercise will almost always reveal the real gap, which is usually not in any individual system, but in handoffs between systems, right? And the best part is that is what is relevant for you to even provide. And by the way, a lot of these things can be designed with AI, right? So you can start chatting with AI about this, but then this is the information and the context that you need to provide to AI for it to be able to suggest solutions for you, right? And then you think about sequencing, right? So the approach that we take in Omnify 6 is deliberate about this, which is shared foundation first, right? Meaning consistent data and workflow visibility. Coordinated workflows is second, right? Meaning business logic is governed and exceptions are handled systematically. Intelligence is third, meaning AI recommendation and decision support where the context is reliable enough to act on. So I think we are still scratching the surface for intelligence, but we are definitely building the foundations to take things forward, right? And the important thing to note here, Ted, is this, that most businesses don't need a massive rebuild to get there, right? They just need a more disciplined sequence. And the discipline to not skip the foundational work because it feels less exciting than talking about a new AI system that you're deploying.
Yeah, but it's not a sprint. And I have to call out the word intelligize. That sounds like a Rahul-ism.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool new word that we can start using.
Okay. So Dwayne, from your side, so what should leaders be prioritizing internally right now based on what Rahul just talked about?
Yeah, I'll say that Rahul offered a huge pile of gold at the beginning of his response by saying that it's not about the tool. I will tell you that is 100% my own experience. And even here at Shopify, we are experimenting with tools all the time. I have access to all the commercial LLMs as do other Shopify employees. But in my own journey, I've gone, from Cursor to Claude to Pi. I'm probably going back to Claude. It's not about the tool. It's about the use cases, right? And if you're a company thinking that you're going to invest in an AI tool now, and it's going to be the right tool for your business in 18 months, call me. I'd like to, buy you lunch now, and I'll offer to buy you lunch in 18 months. And I want to hear about your journey, because I just don't think it's going to be that way. But to your question, like where should leaders start? Where should they be prioritizing? Leaders should really start by identifying what we talked about in this conversation. Where can better decisions materially improve our business? And where those opportunities at? It's where the exceptions are frequent. It's where you need to go faster. It's where teams are still working around those gaps manually. So the second piece of goal that Rahul offered, like map out how it works now, not how it should. That could also be an exercise, but map out how it is now, and be really honest with yourself and in your company, and then take that and pick off little parts of it that you can start to bring under better control, or take that overall map, feed it to your AI engine, and see what it comes back with some recommendations. But again, we were talking before the call started about just consistency in life and foundations. It is really about building this consistent foundation. Can we do what matters most consistently? Right? Are we showing up in the same way consistently? Are we processing this order consistently? Are we handling the exception consistently? Do we have decision rights that are being implemented and used consistently? Technology can help put guardrails, on all of that. Again, do not be too platitude driven here, but like eat the elephant one bite at a time. Figure out one thing, bite off on that, and get a win. That win earns you the emotional, psychological right to do more. It oftentimes earns you the right within your company to go do more. Little wins stacked can be so much more transformative than this one huge win that statistically might not happen, right? So go after those foundations and build intelligence kind of in a lockstep manner.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. The high friction areas is really what we're targeting. And to your point, you fix those, and the rest falls into place. The value is recognized very, very quickly.
That's right. I'd offer too. Again, this is just passion point. Me, I've been a consultant for a long time. Your frontline staff know where the problems are, and I would really encourage senior executives to go sit in the branch desk for a couple hours in the morning rush and see what your B2B buyers are saying to your city desk, right? Encourage these executives to go into the call center and listen. Go buy lunch for the team. Also, just go talk to your customers. Hey, senior executives, get on those planes, go talk to your customers, and your customers will tell you. And especially most loyal customers, these customers, they're going to be loyal to you. They've shown their loyalty. They want to do more. Go ask them and have an honest conversation, and ask them like, hey, where do you see the inefficiencies in our businesses? And if we could solve that, could we invest together to grow more? And that's a real transformative conversation, but you have to get out of the office to go do it.
Dwayne, it's interesting you mentioned about the frontline staff knowing things, and I think one of my team members, John Massey, who used to head our ERP implementations, I think he's on this, he's listening in, and he will love that, because he would constantly come to us telling us that there's somebody that's gatekeeping the ERP implementations, and they're not letting us talk to the operational staff. And then he becomes very nervous that we're probably not implementing the right thing. Once we go live, we run into all the challenges and so on. So talking to the frontline staff and getting them involved is extremely important. I love that.
Yeah,
I do too. You've thrown the gauntlet down. Here's a fun fact. At my daughter's school, one of the other dads is an executive at DoorDash. I won't mention any names, but once a year, actually twice a year, he has to get in the car and he has to deliver food for an entire day and night. And it's required of every executive within the organization. That's what he enjoys most about the job, because that's where you see, that's where the rubber hits the road, right? And it's such a simple concept, but we don't see it happen that often. And I think it's a challenge. It's a good challenge.
Undercover boss, Ted.
What's that? Yeah, undercover boss. That's
our boss.
There's a lot of stories. I know we're out of time, but I'll just offer that one of the business leaders that I've looked to, both in his early part of building his business and then coming back from retirement to rebuild the business, is Howard Schultz from Starbucks. Howard Schultz would get on planes. Of course, he would announce the city he's going to. The management teams know all of this, but what they couldn't control, the management teams in localized stores, is Howard walking behind the counter and talking to the baristas, talking to the shift supervisors, watching them do something. I mean, here's a man who built a coffee empire he might know a little bit about, how that coffee should be poured. He knows what the pressure needs to be, even though he's the founder. And I think those types of examples of people in business who have that founder mentality, even at post IPO scale, thousands of stores, that leadership is needed. Go to the front lines, find those pain points, and if you can solve an employee pain point and they smile a little bit more, that smile is seen by the customers. And I think there's just a lot that can be taken from those examples.
Yeah, that's fun. It's a fun topic. Yeah. Undercover boss, like it's fun to watch, but it's sound advice, I think, as well for any leader. Stay connected. Stay connected to the folks who are on the front lines because they know better than anybody else does.
Absolutely.
Let's move to Q&A. As we committed earlier, we've left some time for some Q&A. We've got a few questions here, and we've covered a lot today. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat, as I mentioned at the beginning. Question one is, what is the first sign that a commerce foundation is no longer scalable?
I'll take that, Ted. I think that's I probably answered something similar in the last session as well. I would say that when change becomes disproportionately expensive, I think that's the signal. You want to add a new sales channel and it requires 2 months of development work, touching 5 different systems. You want to test a new pricing model and it requires changes in 4 different places that have to be synchronized manually, right? And any times when you see that the cost of change starts to feel disconnected from the scope of the change, then foundation has become a constraint rather than a platform, right? I mean, there's nothing to do with AI or anything else. I would say this is just, you want to make sure that any time change becomes complicated, then you need to start relooking at things. And by the way, it is natural in organizations, right? Especially as you keep building systems, you start working through things and so on. Over the years, what started out as a simple, clean idea and perfect idea becomes, complicated. So it's, once every couple of years, it's time to take a step back, look at all your systems, see what needs to be simplified and how you need to strengthen your foundation.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think, I do offer that executives need to be careful about thinking something is too easy in areas that is not their deep level of expertise, right? So if you're a CFO and you think a website, update should be easy, I'd encourage you to pause to make sure you have the real context there. But I also think that that there are things that kind of humans have this inherent understanding of what should be easy. Like, oh, I want to change some spelling on my website. That shouldn't take a week or 2 weeks or a deployment of the website, right? I want to change the color of this button. That shouldn't take 2 weeks or a deployment of this website. So I'd say, again, when you think about what are the indicators, it's when the cost doesn't match, as Rahul said, when the speed to value doesn't match, when what appears to be a simple thing takes multiple business units in your organization, multiple teams in your organization, coordination with a third party or multiple third parties. I think these are all indicators, right? So if you're an e-commerce merchant, B2B or B2C, and you can't make rapid updates to the non-product content of your website, you can't respond quickly to customers, you can't get the answers you need about what's happening in your e-commerce and supply chain channels, these are indicators that you are constrained in how you can scale your. It's not only just scale the revenue, but it's scale your service quality, scale your responsiveness, scale your customer relationships.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we overcomplicate, right? Overthink. I know I'm guilty of it, for sure. We've got another question. As somebody's been listening in terms of how to make an impact, where does AI create the fastest operational value in commerce?
Yeah, I would offer that it's some things we talked about around ordering exceptions, the service context, and operational visibility. Having operational visibility of what is happening on the full customer journey, from how do I track them with paid owned earned media to what's happening on my website. Are there orders being processed consistently? Are we meeting our fulfillment promise? Are they saying good things about us behind our back in review channels and third-party channels? Having visibility into what's happening around that holistically, and then business line leaders who are responsible for parts of that having visibility, that's where you can create real value, because bringing the issues to the forefront to an authoritative, empowered decision maker, that is super impactful. Because otherwise, a lot of times the executives don't know there's an issue, because sometimes those frontline workers aren't speaking up. Maybe there's a power dynamic from the previous management that didn't foster that. But having visibility, I think, is hugely impactful. Rahul?
No, I agree. I don't have anything else to add. I was going to add, and then you covered everything. So that's you said okay, that's exactly how I would say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're getting into some cultural issues and questions as well. So
Well, again, we're here to talk about technologists, but
Yeah.
again, there's this human aspect to this, and I never
Yes.
I never want to get lost. While Shopify is a technology provider, world-class technology provider, world-class internet infrastructure provider, we're in service of merchants, and each of those merchants is human. We are not in service of agentic, merchants. We're in service of humans, and many times they're entrepreneurial humans, and they've started a business and risked great, character and capital to do so. And I think the human aspects need to always be brought to the front.
Yeah, agreed. They all have to work in concert with one another, right? It's not just technology, but it's process and it's organization and it's people at the end of the day. When those are all working together is where we see productivity. So one more question, how should business leaders think about intelligent commerce if they're not technical themselves? So kind of a riff on what you were just talking about, Dwayne. If I'm not highly technical, how should I be looking at this?
Well, I think, one is about really it's around what can you do differently? And what can you do better? And I'm always cautious to use the word better, but can you have better decisioning quality? Do you have ability to change more quickly? Can you reduce operational costs? So I think non-technical leaders should really should think about what does intelligence mean to them. It's not, knowledge is like facts. Intelligence a lot of times is experience and what to do with it. And so, can you be using AIs to get a better understanding of, the competitive surface? Can you be using it to get better understanding of your operational surface? Once you have that better understanding, can you start to use that to drive change? I think it's a whole lot less about, should I be using Cursor, Claude, Pi, all, Google Gemini, whatever the tools are. And it's a whole lot more about creating the conditions by which the executive and the company can, have improved decision making. And I think that's kind of been the theme throughout all of this, trustworthy systems, trustworthy data, empowered humans, operating intelligently without regard to the tool set. I can't reinforce enough that the AI tooling decision is not the strategic decision here, in my view.
Yeah, it's interesting that this question actually came Ted and Dwayne, because I think the pressure around and the pressure that is being created by media and everybody else around AI is that every business wants to now do something with AI, whether it's relevant or not. I think my suggestion would be to actually take a step back and stop making it into an AI based discussion, but more in terms of what can be improved in my business and what were my challenges that have stayed for a long time. I would start there in terms of let's start looking at at the end of the day, if you're a business selling plants, or if you're a business selling frames that we talked about, what have been your historical pain points that required a lot of tribal knowledge, required a lot of decisioning, a human to be involved, and so on, and start looking at that and try to look at that from the context of your business rather than from an AI perspective. And then the answer will naturally come in terms of what how you fix that with AI.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's move. We've got a few minutes left here. 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I want to move.
There's one more question that has just come in. I'll read out. I think that as Shopify evolves around intelligent commerce, how much flexibility will businesses have to build their own operational AI agents around their unique workflows, systems, and customer experiences?
Thank you.
Dwayne,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
so this question, as Shopify continues to invest in AI and AI becomes more pervasive in our merchant community, how will merchants be able to build their own agentic tools to interact with us? And the answer is absolutely yes, and it can be done now. There are, Shopify has, MCP servers, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the terms, MCP servers is just an integration point. And our merchants can build almost entire storefronts with agentic tools. I did this internally last week with a demo store. I built a demo store using only agentic tools without logging into the admin until the very end. So you can be building that now. Or you think about agentic tools to do complex configure price quote externally or on a storefront. That brings that into a Shopify draft order that gets ready for a checkout. We can do that now. We are constantly evolving our APIs for storefront access, for Shop Pay off Shopify, payments off Shopify. We are, one of the key partners in building the Universal Commerce Protocol standard with Google. That is co-authored between Shopify and Google, and we're defining that as an industry open standard so that anyone can take advantage of universal commerce, agentic commerce. And so I expect tremendous gains in this area. I don't talk about Shopify's roadmap, but I would encourage everyone on the call to participate in shopify.dev in July, participate in our twice-a-year editions, and see what we're releasing all the time. And again, shopify.com or Shopify's dev docs have tremendous ways to get started. I'd encourage everyone on the call to get started with agentic commerce now.
Awesome.
Let me add to that. I'll take 30 seconds, Ted. Let me add to that. I think the idea is that, yes, Shopify is doing a lot within the platform, but one of the nice things is that it is an open API platform, right? So which means that there's nothing stopping you from building your own operational AI agents by leveraging those same APIs and so on. And there is an MCP server that's now available, so which means that you should be able to actually, query things and get the information very quickly. So happy to answer this. I think Tim, please feel free to reach out to us. We can point you towards some articles and some ideas in terms of how you can actually build your own agents. Because again, I see where merchants want to build their own because that's their IP, that's their secret sauce that they want to hold, rather than put that in the platform. So you can definitely do that.
For sure. Thanks, Rahul. So let's just quickly move to closing. And that applies to anybody. Feel free to reach out if you'd like to. To wrap up, the core takeaway from today's discussion: connected commerce is not a finish line, right? It's the foundation. The real opportunity is to use that foundation to create better decisions, workflows, better operational outcomes across the business. AI becomes valuable, not when you layer it on top or just throw it into the mix, but when it's applied to a well-coordinated operating model. I just want to close. I want to thank both of you, Rahul and Dwayne, for the conversation. I really look forward to these. I learned a ton myself. I appreciate the perspective. Thanks to everybody who joined us today. If you want to continue the conversation, there's some contact information. Please feel free to reach out. And that is all we have until next time.